Recording.
All right. Hello, my name is Gavin, and these are my team members, Devin, Jordan, Nick, and Riley. We are here today to present our report regarding the analysis of the possible ArcelorMittal steel merger. In this presentation, we will inform you about both the benefits and risks associated with pursuing a merger with Arcelor. We will also be analyzing the defense mechanisms used by Arcelor and their potential impact on the merger process. Finally, in light of the evidence presented, our team will offer our conclusion on whether or not Mittal should continue to pursue this merger with Arcelor. To start, Nick will now explain the possible benefits of acquiring Arcelor.
Thank you, Gavin. The acquisition of Arcelor leads to Mittal's future success because of three key benefits. First, Mittal is already a leader in low-cost steel production, and Arcelor's lineup of high-quality, high-margin steel bolsters their product offerings and their revenue potential. Second, the cost synergies is estimated to be at $1 billion in savings for the combined companies of Mittal and Arcelor. And third, these combined companies will have complete dominance of the steel industry, as the combined companies will have at least 10% of the market share and over $7 billion in annual revenue. This move will only help defend off competition from the rising newcomer in China. Now Jordan will discuss the risks involved with the acquisition.
Thanks, Nick. In order to successfully acquire Arcelor and create cost synergies, there will need to be a detailed assessment of the risks involved with the potential merger. One major issue is a lack of trust the company currently has with European regulators. The European structure of corporate ownership and governance has traditionally made it difficult for hostile takeovers to occur. Although Arcelor's large amount of floating shares, about 88%, make a hostile takeover possible, it would still be preferable for Arcelor's existing management to back the merger plan. Having existing management not on board creates tension and not only increases a culture clash, but may put doubts in the minds of shareholders and regulators alike. Arcelor has already taken action against the merger, employing defense strategies and increasing dividends in an effort to appease shareholders. Arcelor has also mentioned for 2006 a 6.6 billion euro share buyback in the coming year if the Mittal merger were to fail, an action which would inflate its share price and make acquiring a majority of ownership costly for Mittal. Arcelor's management has taken these steps to persuade their shareholders to oppose the Mittal offer. The strategy seems to have worked. As of April 28th, the shareholders voted to retain Arcelor's board after being satisfied with their recent actions. Another potential issue is that with anti-takeover provisions, Luxembourg currently doesn't require shareholders to have a vote against a company doing it. So it makes it even more likely that Arcelor's management has the option to use that at their disposal. So for now, I'll pass it off to Devin, who will talk about the defense analysis.
Thank you, Jordan. So the Arcelor Board of Executives viewed the Mittal offer as an attempt at a hostile takeover since it was an unsolicited proposal. Arcelor also believed that since Mittal was such a big player in the steel industry, the regulations set in place by the European Union would prevent the acquisition from even being allowed to happen. They figured that their shareholders, although it was a great deal for them, they could not be upset with the board themselves if it was the European Union's regulations that were preventing it from happening. When Arcelor finally realized that the EU regulations would not be able to prevent the deal and that many politicians were actually for the Mittal deal, they decided to employ their own defense strategy. So they use Severstal, Russia's largest steel company, as their white knight in order to compete with Mittal. This created a great divide between the shareholders and the board members at Arcelor, and the board members the shareholders, saw the board as acting against their best interests, and it even went so far as to many shareholders wanting to sue the board members. So eventually the deal worked in favor of the board members, but this still created a great rift in between the relationship that they had with the board. And then next, Riley will be talking about the challenges in creating value.
Sure. So moving on to the challenges in creating value for the combined company if this acquisition does take place. So first off, we have integration difficulties. Due to the hostile nature of this acquisition, especially in the short run, there could be a clash in cultures. And then as well as in the long run, we see that a lot of acquisitions actually have a hard time sort of progressing and creating that ultimate synergy. And then also inadequate evaluation. So Mittal is at risk of overpaying for Arcelor. And so I have a couple stats here about the initial bid and then the final bid as well. And probably the most significant statistic on here is that for the final bid that Mittal made to Arcelor, there is a 40 to 50% premium over the initial offer that was made on January 27th. And this increase and sort of accumulation of increased offering led to the total value of the acquisition being 26 billion euros. And so it became a very, very costly, big transaction. So then we have the unrealistic evaluation of synergies. So these are two different companies that are within the same industry. However, they sort of focus on different segments with just a little bit of overlap. So if this acquisition was to take place, it's a big question mark on whether Mittal and Arcelor will be able to work together and also utilize things such as production facilities, core competencies, different capabilities to sort of create that value that they're looking for. And then other concessions that were made on Mittal's side. So they will now have a minority of board members, and also the shareholder vote structure changed. So instead of there being different classes of the shares, they're now all the same. So one share equals one vote, where previously, especially the Mittal family had more power, sort of depending on their ownership of whichever type of share had more weight towards it. And then also just the Mittal family in general will have under 50% of the ownership control of the combined company. And then, so moving on to the debt and overall size of the company, as we talked about earlier, this is a huge transaction. So especially immediately, the credibility of the new company might be sort of in question. So they might have a hard time finding investors and ways to take out, especially loans for short or long-term investments that they decide to make. And then also just the overall size of the company can be very, or could be very hard to manage, especially since it is two cultures coming together. And also just because they are very different steel products that each company is bringing together here. And so moving on to our conclusion. So despite the risks and challenges associated with the merger, our ultimate decision and what we suggest is that Mittal goes ahead with the acquisition. And the reasoning is that they will gain, and Jordan talked a little bit about this earlier, but this is sort of a summation. And so they'll gain those cost synergies, economies of scale. They'll be able to utilize these production facilities already in place. It'll sort of shift the power away from what originally is sort of like the steel market's sort of known to be like a buyer, or to be a buyer's market. And so to kind of shift it over and make it more of a seller's market, at least for this company. And then also just having the access to all these new markets that the new merger would have would ultimately lead to not only short-term success, but also long-term success. So overall, we really thought that just these benefits right here, in addition to other ones, would ultimately outweigh the costs and challenges involved. And so that is why we suggest that Mittal should go ahead with the acquisition. And that's it. Thank you.